this thing just took over this entire zeitgeist. It's this paradigm shift in the way we consumed media. And that's just goes to show how amazing and well loved the show really was and how massive an appeal globally the show really had. Your footprints are on that history with directing two of which are still considered the best episodes of the series. They're IMDb top 10 as well, Blackwater and The Watchers on the Wall, which of course earned you your Emmy nomination. What are your memories on working on a project like Game of Thrones, and how were you approached to actually come on the project and bring your own taste to this mega behemoth franchise?
Game of Thrones came around primarily because of Centurion. I mean, obviously, Game of Thrones itself, like off the back of Lord of the Rings, is like taking the fantasy genre to a whole other level,
Yeah.
and becoming part of the zeitgeist over those the years that it ran is just astonishing. My involvement in it came about primarily because of Centurion, and it's behind me. Is this crazy dog? Anyway, yeah, so Centurion came out, and a lot of the crew from that went on to work on the first season of Game of Thrones, particularly the stunt coordinator Paul Herbert and the horse master Camilla Napru, um, both amazing, amazing, talented people. And so they went off to do that. I was trying to get the next projects off the ground after Centurion, and I was aware that Game of Thrones was happening, and I thought that's right up my street, and so I contacted HBO through my agent, but the response that I got was pretty much, we have our directors, we have a pretty much closed shop of directors that we go to, so that was that. I kind of, I wrote that off. I was like, I'm never going to get a chance of doing that. I never done TV before either, so it was pretty unusual. But then I guess they were shooting season 2, and they were close to doing Blackwater, the Battle of Blackwater, and their original director had to drop out for personal reasons, like at the last minute. So they found themselves in quite a pickle, and they needed help. And by this point, their stunt coordinator Paul Herbert and their horse master Camilla Napru approached the producers and said, "I know you need a director in a hurry. Check out Centurion. Check out this guy. He'll sort you out." And so I guess they watched Centurion and saw what I could do in terms of a battle sequence on a low budget. And I got a call one Saturday morning from the producers of Game of Thrones, completely out of the blue, and saying, "How would you like to come and do an episode of Game of Thrones?" And I was like, "Whoa, yeah, absolutely! Like, what's the deal? Is it next month? When is it?" And they were like, "Well, you need to start first thing Monday morning. You'll have a week's prep, and it's the biggest episode we've ever done.
Oh
So
boy.
the pressure's on, but you want to do it?" And I was like, "Absolutely, just let me in there." And they allowed me to bring my DP who'd shot Centurion and all my films up until that point, Sam McCurdy. They said, bring Sam across so you've got that, because I know it's going to be crazy, but bring Sam across and use him in that. And so we just kind of dived in head first. Like I had like I said, a very intense week's prep, and and just got stuck in, and it was incredible. And they were so welcoming, and they really wanted some ideas, because what I brought to the table, especially with Blackwater, was a sense of strategy. Like, I'm a military history reader, and I kind of know about this stuff. So the battle that they had written on the script made no sense. So I kind of went in, and dramatically it was brilliant, but logistically it made no sense. So I kind of went in and worked on that with them, and brought in a lot of elements like the battering ram that they have. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, they come on boats, but they're going to bring a battering ram. So like, what if we invent a boat that like has a battering ram on it, and when you arrive on the beach, you turn the boat upside down so it becomes a protective shell for the battering ram, and then you go up to the gate and you start smashing it in there. It's like, okay, and they built it, and it was like amazing. I've never seen I've had one of those before, so they built that. It was brilliant. Um, and little bits and pieces like that. Really, it was just great
Yeah.
experience.
Absolutely. And from Blackwater, which is probably their first big action
Yeah.
set piece or war kind of episode, which transitions to then the Watchers on the Wall, which honestly, till this day, I think it's one of the best episodes in television history. And again, Neil, that's largely due to your vision and what you brought to the table, in my opinion. What was the contrast where you have Blackwater, where the budget at the show was still big at the time, but it's nowhere what it was by the time Watchers on the Wall came along. And now you almost had the free reins of hair. We're gonna have this massive battle. It's gonna have massive moving set pieces here and there, and they're following Jon Snow throughout this battle. What was the biggest difference from the shooting Blackwater to Watchers on the Wall? And overall, what was it like shooting with Kit Harington on such a physical episode?
Um, well, I had a lot more prep on Watchers on the Wall. I mean, there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot more warning going into it. It was going to be logistically way more complicated because of the things like the wall, which obviously doesn't exist, and so they have to they built this amazing set for the top of the wall. We had the castle, Castle Black at the bottom of the wall. Um, we had mammoths. We had this giant mammoth, which
Yeah.
was 100% CG. But then we have the giants, which are a combination of CG and like they're real guys, and they're big guys. 7 foot, 8 foot guys. But then they're blown up to twice that size on the screen. So VFX wise, it was by far the most complex thing that I've ever done. But at the same time, what I think I bring to it as well is this visceral action of the charge, the attack, the fight in Castle Black, and all that kind of stuff, and doing it in the pouring rain, bringing ideas to the table, such as the guys on top of the wall. It's like 400, 500 feet up in the air,
Yeah.
were immune to anything below, like people with bows and arrows or whatever couldn't get to them because it's just too high. So I said, well, what if the giants have bows as well? And their bows are going to be like heavy artillery, so their arrows can reach. And then working with the writers came up with the notion of like, well, what if the giant fires an arrow, it hits a guy on the top of the wall, picks him up, and he goes flying through the air and he lands in the middle of the Battle of Castle Black on the other side of the wall, and it kind of like geographically links everything together. And so we had all these like funny ideas like that, but it was just like packing in action, 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 and I love doing that stuff. And the bigger the scale, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Um, Working with Kit was a real pleasure because he's one of the most kind of dexterous physical actors I've ever, like, he's such a natural with the sword.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think he is like, Errol Flynn reincarnated or something like that. He just, I don't know, it's a kind of graceful quality like a dancer has, of just being foot precise, with his movements and everything like that. And you can rehearse this stuff with him. He just gets it every time. He was so good with that.
Yeah.
So good. So yeah, and just great fun to work with. And another thing is the 360 shot that I did this particular shot, which was not in the script. That whole beat was not in the script at all. But when I first walked onto Castle Black set, which is a 360-degree set
Mhm.
all the way around, and the most boring part is just the flat courtyard in the middle. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I don't want to stage all the fighting here because it's kind of boring. I'd rather
Yeah.
stick a camera crane in the middle here and have the fighting going on around the outside, where it's all like stairways and gantries and walkways. That's visually way more interesting and physically more interesting. And then I came up with this idea of like, well, what if we have the camera do like a full 360 around the courtyard? And then that kind of built and to become, what if it picked up each of the main characters as it goes and kind of shows where they are at that particular stage in the story and where they are physically in the castle, and we'd understand the battle so much better. So it had a solid narrative reason to exist. And I think that's kind of justified it rather than just being a fancy camera move. And yeah, with that, so we rehearsed it about 7 or 8 times, and then well, no, so we rehearsed it over a couple of hours, but we got it in 7 takes. That's what it was.
Gotcha.
It was
Now,
worth it. It's worth it.
yeah, it's one of those shows where it just builds on so many different layers and foundations. And as you mentioned, with Blackwater, then it builds on to this episode here that
Well,
we're talking
yeah,
about.
and then obviously I had the responsibility of killing off several, main
Beloved
and
characters.
beloved characters. Yes, there's at least three to kill off in brutal manner. So yeah,
Oof. But
it's
that's the
tough.
beauty of the show, because it just finds a way to keep people on their toes, and it then takes this episode and snowballs into like a battle like the Battle of the Bastards, then the Long Night. It just keeps reinventing itself. So in hindsight, overall, what would you say your experience with working with the entire Game of Thrones team was?
It was incredible, and yeah, I'm so proud to have been part of something that's made it's TV history,
Yeah.
and to have an integral role within that. But it was such a great creative team. Like everybody was just like perfect for their job, and did it
Yeah.
so well, and everybody was interacting. And when they brought in somebody like me, and I assume it's the same for the other directors, they wanted our ideas, and because we had such great writers. We didn't need to worry about the narrative content of it because the writers were phenomenal. So bringing ideas to the table and melding them together that way, it created TV magic.